Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Josh, and together...
Your watch.
What?
Your watch.
Oh, crap. Thank you. My name is Josh, and together we're reading the CDL Manual for Montana for the year 2016. This is part 16. If you haven't watched anything else, go back and start at the beginning of the playlist, because ain't no skips in this line. Start from the beginning. The TV just flashed in a very funny way. Moving on. Okay, so make sure you check down in my pants, or, you know, if you boringly refer to it as the description box, there's links down there. Links to the CDL manual. Links to a test website that's actually really helpful. Links to Ruby, a Wil-Trans instructor. She does a CDL, she does a pre-trip inspection that you should watch. It's really helpful. And then you're going to find links to Allie Knight, Ellie and the Crafty trucker. You should check all of them out, especially if you're interested in trucking, which if you weren't, I don't know why you would be watching this video, but whatever. Check them out, show them some love. Moving on. We're on section 2, driving safely. This material is so dry. That's why Maggie told me to start making videos so that I could have someone to kind of study with, so to speak. Because it's really dry to like sit here and read it by yourself. You may hear Maggie in the background. You might hear Marvin barking.
You might hear the train.
You might hear the train. What's the train's name?
Harvey.
You're giving the train my dad's name?
I wasn't thinking of it like that, but yes.
You might hear Harvey the train. He likes to come through and make his presence known.
There's also Thomas.
Yeah, not Thomas. There's only one Thomas. Okay, so we're on page 2-29, section 2.14, driving in very hot weather. Hot. 2.14.1. Vehicle checks. Do a normal vehicle inspection, but pay special attention to the following items. I feel like I'm getting... What's happening right now is I need a drink. Not that kind of a drink. Just a little sip on my tea. Yes, my tea's in a Mountain Dew bottle. Can I just live, please? Thank you. Oh, I always forget to mention this. I'm a rookie. If it sounds like I'm trying to teach y'all something, it's not. I'm just trying to make this dry material interesting in some way. And there weren't any other videos that I could find where someone's going through the manual. So I thought maybe this would help me and you, possibly. If you're finding this in the future, please reach out to me, because hopefully by then I will have my CDL and I can help you like people have helped me. Particularly the people that I've linked in my pants. So, yeah, okay. Tires. Check the tire mounting and air pressure. Inspect the tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather. Air pressure increases with temperature. Do not let air out of the tires. Do not let air out, or the pressure will be too low when the tires cool off. That's one of the questions. It's important to know that if you're checking your tires, if they're too high, don't let air out, because then once the temperature changes, they're going to be too low, and that can cause a tire fire. You don't want that. Do not let air out, or the pressure will be too low when the tires cool off. If a tire is too hot to touch, remain stopped until the tire cools off. Otherwise, the tire may blow out or catch fire. Engine oil. The engine oil helps keep the engine cool as well as lubricating it. Make sure there is enough engine oil. If you have an oil temperature gauge, make sure the temperature is within the proper range while you're driving. Engine coolant. Before starting out, make sure the engine cooling system has enough water and antifreeze according to the engine manufacturer's directions. Antifreeze helps keep the engine under hot conditions as well as cold conditions. When driving, check the water temperature or coolant temperature gauge from time to time. Make sure that it remains in the normal range. If the gauge goes above the highest safe temperature, there may be something wrong that could lead to engine failure and possibly fire. Stop driving as soon as safely possible and try to find out what's wrong. Some vehicles have sight glasses, see-through coolant overflow containers, or coolant recovery containers. These permit you to check the coolant level while the engine's hot. If the container is not part of the pressurized system, the cap can be safely removed and coolant added even when the engine is at operating temperature. Never remove the radiator cap or any part of the pressurized system until the system has cooled. Steam and boiling water can spray under pressure and cause severe burns, and also spill on the ground and poison animals in whatever area you're in. If you can touch the radiator cap with your bare hand, it is probably cool enough to open. Alternatively, find a radiator hose and squeeze it. And if it's not too pressurized, you can potentially open it, but never open a radiator cap without having a rag. It's always rag and then hand, and if you're smart, you'll also have a pair of work gloves that will further protect your hand. But for me, when I'm working with a coolant system or a radiator, I don't use cloth gloves. I use the rubberized ones, the thick rubber ones, because if you use cotton gloves and something hot gets on the glove, it's going to stick to your hand even more. So it's almost better to have a bare hand and just go really slowly. Not a bare hand, but either really thick, like rubber gloves, or with a towel, not just your hand. Because let me tell you, I've opened many a radiator and had it go psh, even though I didn't think it was going to. Even though I checked the hose and I waited, it still had more pressure than I expected. And it's easy to do. So just be aware of that. Okay. If coolant has to be added to a system without a recovery tank or overflow tank, follow these steps. Shut your engine off. Wait until the engine has cooled. Protect hands. Use gloves or a thick cloth. Turn the radiator cap slowly to the first stop. And there's always a notch. You'll feel it. You have to push down, turn it slowly, and then once you feel that notch, stop. Because at that notch, that's when it's going to release the pressure seal. Step back when that's happening. Number one, you don't want to breathe in all the coolant fumes because that's not really, it's not going to kill you, but it's not good for you. Step back while the pressure is released from the cooling system. When the air pressure has been released, press down on the cap and turn it further to remove it. Visually check the level of coolant and add more coolant if necessary. Also, alternatively, check your cap because a lot of times cars or trucks can go through radiator caps often. There's a lot of pressure on that cap constantly. There should be a seal on the inside of the cap that you should check and make sure that it's still in good condition, because if it's not, you could be losing coolant that way. So that's just a little side note. Replace the cap and turn all the way to the closed position. Make sure you get past that first notch because it's going to release pressure if you don't close it all the way. Engine belts. Learn how to check V-belt tightness on your vehicle by pressing on the belts. Loose belts will not turn the water pump and/or fan properly. This will result in overheating. Also check belts for cracking or other signs of wear. Don't reef on them though. Don't push them hard. Be gentle. They're rubber belts and they do have a lifetime expectancy on them that can be lengthened by treating them excuse me, delicately and or properly. Hoses. Make sure coolant hoses are in good condition. A broken hose while driving can lead to engine failure and even fire. In most instances, if your hose clamps aren't too tight, you're going to notice a hose is wearing before it actually goes. They'll show signs of cracking. And when they first start to show signs of cracking, make that known to your company or make that known to your mechanic or whatever the situation is, because it's your warning and you should heed it, because you don't want to have to try and be stuck on the side of the road because one of your radiator hoses went. It's a pain in the butt. Section 2.14.2, driving. Watch for bleeding tar. Tar in the road pavement frequently rises to the surface in very hot weather. Spots where tar bleeds to the surface are very slippery. Go slowly enough to prevent overheating. High speeds create more heat for tires and the engine. In desert conditions, the heat may build up to the point where it is dangerous. The heat will increase chances of tire failure or even fire and engine failure. Alright, that brings us to the end of page 2-29 and subsections 2.11, 2.12, 2.13, and 2.14 test your knowledge. You should use low beams wherever you can. True or false? False. You should use your high beams whenever you safely can. Number 2, what should you do before you drive if you're drowsy? You should sleep if you're drowsy. Number 3, what effects can wet brakes cause? How can you avoid these problems? If your brakes get wet, they can lose power, they can stick, they can just fail. If you want to avoid brake failure, you would very slow, keep a very light, even pressure on the brakes. For example, if the brakes get wet, you can dry them out by keeping even pressure, and the heat from the brakes will dry them. So that's what you would do to avoid that problem, because once you lose your brakes, that's a really bad thing. You can jackknife, you can go off the road, you could just lose control. Number 4, you should let air out of hot tires so the pressure goes back to normal. True or false? False! Tires are designed to, their pressure fluctuates, especially when they get hot and cold. And if you take a hot tire and you release air from it, when it cools off, it's going to be underinflated. And particularly, that's a really dangerous thing for your dual tires, because then they're going to start rubbing, and then you're going to have a tire fire, and you don't want that. And even if they're your drive tires, you don't want them to be underinflated, because that causes weird wear and tear. And also, I feel like there could also be a tire fire even if it's just one tire, because more of the tire is on the road surface, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it could be a problem. Number 5, you can safely remove the radiator cap as long as the engine isn't overheated. True or false? That's false. You need to make sure that the system is cool enough for the pressure to be lessened inside your radiator, inside your system. If you have a reservoir that's not a part of the pressurized system, then you could release that cap. But what they're talking about, the radiator cap, no, you can't. Just because the engine isn't overheated doesn't mean that there's not pressure on that cap. And you could literally, I specifically know someone who's had, really incredibly bad burns on his face from taking a radiator cap off before he should have. So, yeah, be careful with that. Okay. So we're still we've got some time on this video, so we're going to continue on past this section. We're going to continue on to we're still in section 2, driving safely, but we're on page 2-30 and section 2.15, railroad highway crossings. Railroad highway grade crossings are a special kind of intersection where the roadway crosses train tracks. These crossings are always dangerous. Every such crossing must be approached with the expectation that a train is coming. It is extremely difficult to judge the distance of the train from the crossing as well as the speed of an approaching train. 2.15.1 Types of crossings. Passive crossings. This type of crossing does not have any type of traffic control device. The decision to stop or proceed rests entirely in your hands. Passive crossings require you to recognize the crossing, search for any train using the tracks, and decide if there is sufficient clear space to cross safely. Active crossings. This type of crossing has a traffic control device installed at the crossing to regulate traffic at the crossing. These active devices include flashing red lights with or without bells and flashing red lights with bells and gates. 2.15.2 Warning signs and devices. Advance warning signs. The round black on yellow warning sign is placed ahead of a public road, railroad, highway crossing. The advance warning sign tells you to slow down, look and listen for the train, and be prepared to stop at the tracks if a train is coming. All passenger and hazmat carrying vehicles are required to stop. I'm going to show it to you. It's right here. Boom. Okay. Pavement markings. Pavement markings mean the same as the advance warning sign. They consist of an X with the letters RR and a no passing marking on 2-lane roads. See figure 2.16. There you go. I keep peeking around all creepy like because I'm trying to make sure you can see it. There is also a no passing sign, zone sign on 2-lane roads. There may be a white stop line painted in the pavement before the railroad tracks. The front of the school bus must remain behind the line while stopped at the crossing. Cross buck signs. This sign marks the grade crossing. It requires you to yield the right-of-way to the train. If there is no white stop line painted on the pavement, vehicles that are required to stop must stop no closer than 15 or more than 50 feet from the nearest... What? If there is no white stop line painted on the pavement, vehicles that are required to stop must stop no closer than 15 feet or more than 50 feet from the nearest rail of the nearest track. Okay, so within 15 to 50 feet. When the road crosses over more than one track, a sign below the cross buck indicates the number of tracks. See figure 2.17. Right there. Flashing red light signals. At many highway rail grade crossings, the crossbuck sign has flashing red lights and bells. When the lights begin to flash, stop. A train is approaching. You are required to yield the right-of-way to the train. If there is more than one track, make sure all tracks are clear before crossing.
What the hell?
What?
They wrote back about your warranty and it said, "Thanks for choosing Duduma. If the sunglasses have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thanks a lot."
Yeah, I feel like there may be a language barrier there. Gates. Many railroad highway crossings have gates with flashing red lights and bells. Stop when the lights begin to flash and before the gate lowers across the road lane. Remain stopped until the gates go up and the lights have stopped flashing. Proceed when it's safe. See figure 2.18. I showed you that one. Now we're on page 2-31, section 2.15.3, driving procedures. Never race a train to a crossing. Never attempt to race a train to a crossing. It's extremely difficult to judge the speed of an approaching train. Reduce speed. Speed must be reduced in accordance with your ability to see the approaching trains in any direction, and speed must be held to a point which will permit you to stop short of the tracks in case a stop is necessary. Don't expect to hear a train. Trains may not or are prohibited from sounding horns when approaching some crossings. Public crossings where trains do not sound horns should be identified by signs. Noise inside your vehicle may also prevent you from hearing the train horn until the train is dangerously close to the crossing. Don't rely on signals. You should not rely solely upon the presence of warning signals, gates, or flagmen to warn of the approach of trains. Be especially alert at crossings that do not have gates or flashing red light signals. Double tracks require a double check. Remember that a train on one track may hide a train on the other track. Look both ways before crossing. After one train has cleared a crossing, be sure no other trains are near before starting across the tracks. Yard areas and grade crossings in cities and towns. Yard areas and grade crossings in cities and towns are just as dangerous as rural grade crossings. Approach them with just as much caution. 2.15.4. Stopping safely at railroad highway crossings. A full stop is required at grade crossings whenever the nature of the cargo makes a stop mandatory under state or federal regulations. Such a stop is otherwise required by law. When stopping, be sure to check for traffic behind you while stopping gradually. Use a pull-out lane if available. Turn on your four-way emergency flashers. Crossing the tracks. 2.15.5. Railroad crossings with steep approaches can cause your unit to hang up on the tracks. Never permit traffic conditions to trap you in a position where you have to stop on the tracks. Be sure you can get all the way across the tracks before you start across. It takes a typical tractor-trailer unit at least 14 seconds to clear a single track and more than 15 seconds to clear a double track. That's one of the questions. It takes a typical tractor-trailer unit at least 14 seconds to clear a single track and more than 15 seconds to clear a double track. Do not shift gears while crossing railroad tracks. That's obvious because it's a manual and you could stall. Don't do it. You'll get stuck, and then the time that it takes you to start up and get out of the way could be more time than you actually have. 2.15.6 Special Situations. Be aware, these trailers can get stuck on raised crossings. Low-slung units, lowboy, car carrier, moving van, possum belly livestock trailer. Single axle tractor pulling a long tractor with its landing gear set to accommodate a tandem style tractor. If for any reason you get stuck on the tracks, get out of the vehicle and away from the tracks. Check signpost or signal housing at the crossing for emergency notification information. Call 911 or other emergency number. Give the location Give the location crossing using all identifiable landmarks, especially the DOT number if posted. Now we're on page 2-32. 2.16 Mountain Driving. In mountain driving, gravity plays a major role. On any upgrade, gravity slows you down. The steeper the grade, the longer the grade, and or the heavier the load, the more you will have to use lower gears to climb hills or mountains. In coming down long, steep downgrades, gravity causes the speed of your vehicle to increase. You must select an appropriate safe speed, then use a low gear and proper braking techniques. You should plan ahead and obtain information about any long, steep grades along your planned route of travel. If possible, talk to other drivers who are familiar with the grades to find out what speeds are safe. You must go slowly enough so your brakes can hold you back without getting too hot. If the brakes become too hot, they may start to fade. This means you have to apply them harder and harder to get the same stopping power. If you continue to use the brakes hard, they can keep fading until you cannot slow down or stop at all. 2.16.1 Select a safe speed. Your most important consideration is to select a speed that is not too fast for the total weight of the vehicle and cargo, the length of the grade, the steepness of the grade, the road conditions, and the weather. If a speed limit is posted, or there is a sign indicated maximum safe speed, never exceed the speed shown. Also, look for and heed warning signs indicating the length and grade and steepness of the grade. You must use the braking effect of the engine as the principal way of controlling your speed. The braking effect of the engine is greatest when it's near the governed RPMs and the transmission is in the lower gears. Save your brakes so you will be able to slow or stop as required by road and traffic conditions. 2.16.2 Select the right gear before starting down the grade. Shift the transmission to a low gear before starting down the grade. Don't try to downshift after your speed has already built up. You will not be able to shift into a lower gear. You may not even be able to get back into any gear, and all engine braking effect will be lost. Holy crap, that's scary. Forcing an automatic transmission into a lower gear at high speed could damage the transmission and also lead to loss of all engine braking effect. With older trucks, a rule for choosing gears is to use the same gear going down a hill that you would need to climb the hill. However, new trucks have low friction parts and the streamlined shapes for fuel economy. They may also have more powerful engines. This means they can go up hills in higher gears and have less friction and air drag to hold them back going down hills. For that reason, drivers of modern trucks may have to use lower gears going down a hill than would be required to go up the hill. You should know what is right for your vehicle. 2.16.3 Brake fading or failure. Brakes are designed so brake shoes or pads rub against the brake drum or discs to slow the vehicle. Braking creates heat, but brakes are designed to take a lot of heat. However, brakes can fade or fail from excessive heat caused by using them too much and not relying on the engine braking effect. Brake fade is also affected by adjustment. To safely control a vehicle, every brake must do its share of the work. Brakes out of adjustment will stop doing their share before those that are in adjustment. The other brakes can then overheat and fade, and there will not be enough braking available to control the vehicle. Brakes can get out of adjustment quickly, especially when they're used a lot. Also, brake linings wear faster when they're hot. Therefore, brake adjustment must be checked frequently. 2.16.4 Proper braking technique. Remember, the use of brakes on a long and/or steep downgrade is only a supplement to the braking effect of the engine. Once the vehicle is in the proper low gear, the following are the proper braking techniques. Apply the brakes just hard enough to feel a definite slowdown. When your speed has been reduced to approximately 5 miles per hour below your safe speed, release the brakes. This brake application should last for about 3 seconds. When your speed has increased to your safe speed, repeat steps 1 and 2. For example, if your safe speed is 40 miles per hour, you would not apply the brakes until your speed reaches 40 miles per hour. You now apply the brakes hard enough to gradually reduce your speed to 35 miles per hour, and then release them. Repeat this as often as necessary until you have reached the end of the downgrade. Escape ramps have been built on many steep mountain downgrades. Escape ramps are made to stop runaway vehicles safely without injuring drivers and passengers. Escape ramps use a long bed of loose, soft material to slow a runaway vehicle, sometimes in combination with an upgrade. No escape ramp locations on your route. Signs show drivers where ramps are located. Escape ramps save lives, equipment, and cargo. Subsections 2.15 and 2.16 test your knowledge. 1. What factors determine your selection of a safe speed when going down a long, steep downgrade? The weight of the vehicle. Yeah, I had to look. I don't know this. This is something I'm going to have to touch back on. The total weight of the vehicle and the cargo, the length of the grade, the steepness of the grade, the road conditions, and the weather. And also, if you can talk to other drivers about, like, if they know that grade or whatever, like, oh, this along I-90 is, you know, and then maybe they can give you advice too. And also, the vehicle, I would know what my vehicle can handle. Like, if it's a newer vehicle, then maybe I want to be even more careful because it's going to be more optimum than, like, an older vehicle, I feel like. Or maybe it'll even be more difficult because, well, maybe an older vehicle would be, it depends on the downgrade or the upgrade. But down, so depending, yeah, because if it's an older vehicle and it's heavy or whatnot, yeah. Okay, number 2, why should you be in the proper gear before starting down a hill? Because you're going to pick up speed when you're going down a hill, and if you're trying to go down, if you're trying to downgrade, that's not going to work. Your engine brakes aren't going to work properly. Describe the proper braking technique when going down a long, steep downgrade. Well, before you go into the downgrade, you're going to be in the proper gear for your safety, for your safe traveling speed. And then you're going to have your engine brakes on to help control you. And then, like, if it's 40 miles per hour, once you approach 40 miles per hour, you would, brake to bring yourself about 5 miles per hour lower than that. Maybe like 3 seconds. And then let off and manage it that way within that 5 miles per hour. What type of vehicles can get stuck on a railroad highway crossing? If you have landing gear, if you're carrying cars, if you're a low belly animal, if you're carrying livestock. Number 5, how long does it take for a typical tractor trailer unit to clear a double track? At least 15 seconds. A single track is 14 seconds and a double track is 15. Alright guys, that's it for this video. For part 16 we had no questions, so for part 17 we'll just get right back into it. Thanks for watching. See